Okay, can we see this just fine? Let me find the box so I can draw on real quick. And there. Okay. Well, that's a lot smaller than I was looking for, but that's okay. Today we are learning about shading. Shading 101. So please click the little icon in the top of your settings menu, the little gear, and then change it to Shading 101. Change the name from my document to Shading 101. S-H-A-D, I figured spelling are correct. Okay, so what we're going to start with is we're going to start with a photo, and we're going to identify the rules that create shading. Does that make sense? There's like two big rules. One big rule and one minor rule. So, we got a photo of a kid here. What makes this look 3D? And sorry about the printer marks on it. It's not a great printer. Hang on, I need to know that. What makes this 3D? Go ahead.
The shading itself when it goes from light to dark.
Goes from light to dark. How do we know where to put the light and where to put the dark? Go ahead.
You figure out where you want to put your light, and whichever way, like whichever direction you're heading in, it gets darker. So the further away you are from the light source.
Okay, the further away you are from the light source, it gets darker. Technically, these lips are farther away than this cheek, but they're the same color. So you're on the right path. We need to alter that definition just a little bit. So there's something that happens between the light source and the object to cause it to be darker. What happens? Nathan?
Like whatever part of the light is shining on the object will light up, and whatever part of the light is not shining on the object will not light up.
Almost. Switch the way you're thinking. Don't think about the light, think about the object. So what about the object makes it so that the light is not shining on it?
Facing away.
It's facing away. Perfect. So we have this part of their cheek is facing towards the light. This part of their nose, as it turns, it's facing away from the light, therefore it gets darker. So the rule is it as it turns away, it gets darker. That applies to anything, any object. As the face of the object turns away, the object will get darker. So we were calling the light something. There was a vocab word we were using when we were referring to the light. Did anybody catch it? A couple of you used it without thinking. Natalie, what was it? Sorry, not Natalie. Autumn, you were not Natalie. Sorry. I don't know why I called you that. Light source. This is the source of the light. The source of the light. Is that pretty self-explanatory? Light source, source of the light. We're going to have a lot of vocab like that. I'm going to help you understand why the title means what it means today. So we're going to be imitating what we see here. What we see here is a very complicated version of shading. It has lots and lots of different parts that are facing the light and different parts that are facing away from the light. Would somebody come up here and please identify 3 areas that are directly facing the light for me? Alex, do you think you could do it? I believe in you. Can you do 2? Go ahead. So Alex is going to identify 2 areas that are facing the light. Where? Right here and right here? Perfect. So as we can see, these areas are lighter. Any other areas? Anybody sees? Spencer. Can you find another area up there? Okay, right here on the nose. Perfect. We also have the lips. We have the arch of the lip is directly facing. You guys, I forgot everybody's name just then. My whole head just exploded and stupid. Give me a second. Mirka, can you go up and find an area where it starts to turn away from the light?
Right here.
That, it's already facing away. Where does it start to turn away? Like it starts bending away from the light source.
I don't know.
It would be a medium color.
Maybe the forehead.
So like right here?
Yeah.
Yes, you are correct. Go ahead, Nathan.
The middle of the nose, kind of.
Right here or right here?
Kind of like.
Here, just stand up and point. Jason, I'm going to have you do the next one, which is the area that is farthest away from the light.
It's like right here in the middle.
So in this area.
Yeah.
Okay. So the area that starts bending away from the light gives you a medium color, right? Jason, can you choose the darkest area, please? Or rather, the area farthest away from the light? I just gave you the answer. Fun. This area is definitely farthest away. We also have right here, if you guys look on the eye, do you see how the eye curves? And we have this dark line right here. That's farthest away from the light in that area. Okay, now we're going to take some notes together. I would like you guys to draw a circle, 2 circles actually, on your note template. Jamie, I need you to stay awake. So go and draw 2 circles. We've already gone over one vocab, which is light source. You guys are going to determine 2 light sources for us. Yeah.
What does it say right there after light source?
Source of the light.
Oh, okay.
Sorry for my handwriting. Jason, oh not Jason, sorry. Brayden, that's what I meant to do. Brayden, can you choose a light source for me? Where should we put the light on this first circle? Right, left, bottom, top, middle, where should we put it? Right, top, bottom, middle, where? Right top, okay. You'll see a lot in art. Artists will put an arrow or they'll put like a little sun icon. That indicates light source. Okay. Megan, where should we put this light source for this object? Bottom middle, so like here. Okay, so we're going to do this. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to pretend that there's a wall. Oh, that was a good line to draw. We're going to pretend that there's a wall in between these. Before we really start shading, I need you to make sure you're on your pencil brush, not on any other brushes. So if you're using a pencil, like an actual pencil, you're good. But you need to be able to use the side of your pencil brush. So if you go to your menu for your brushes, if you're using your pixel brush, in the very top, and you click sketching, it's at the bottom of the list of all the types of brushes, and you can choose pencil. And it should allow you to shade with the side of your pencil. Okay. Okay, so let's start with our first light source right here. Which part of this circle is going to be the lightest part? Emily? Top what? Top right. So then we're going to shade everything except for the top right because that's the lightest area. Give you guys some time to do that. Jamie, I need you to follow along. Okay, Jaden, for the second circle, where's the lightest part going to be? Bottom, left, right, middle, where? Middle? Okay, thank you. Okay, now we have a sphere, a circle, and it's turning away from the light source, so what happens? And what happens? It turns away from the light source. What happens to the color? Yeah, as it turns away. It gets darker. Perfect. So as we go farther away from the light source and the object is turning, if it was flat, it would stay the same color. But since it's turning away, it's going to get darker. Same with up here. As it turns away, it gets darker. We're mimicking the shape of the object, which in this case is a circle. This is where we come to the second rule. I said there was one big rule and one not so big but kind of important rule. Raise your hand if you need some more time so I don't rush you guys. You guys the time you need. Okay. Light goes in a straight line. So if your object is on a table or next to another object, there's going to be a certain thing that happens. So let's say that our object is on a table. Okay, in this case, this one doesn't make much sense for it to be on a table, but let's say this object is on a table. If light goes in a straight line and then bounces, what does that mean for this area back here? Go for it, Linda.
It's going to be a bit lighter.
It's going to be a tiny bit lighter. It's going to get a reflection. So I'm just going to lightly erase. If you guys use the eraser labeled rubber, it will act like a normal pencil eraser and you can push really lightly and it won't erase a ton. Baby, this is the third time. If you don't fix your behavior, I'll have to fix it. So, because the light source bounces off the table and hits the backside, it's going to be light. If the table is red, what color is that light going to be? Not quite. If the table is red, what color is the reflected light going to be? Red. If the table is green, what color is the reflected light going to be? If the table's black, what's going to happen? No reflected light. Or very little reflected light. If the table's white, Jamie, what's going to happen to the reflected light?
It'll be white.
It'll be white. It'll be really strong. Okay, and then will there be a reflected light here? If this object is on a table, is there any reflected light on it? The light's shining up. Shayla, with the light shining up and the table being down here, will there be any reflected light on the back of this? No, because there's nothing for the light to shine and hit. It just keeps going, right? So this one we stay the same, this one we lighten. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, the very last step is we have to learn how to draw a shadow. So what a shadow is, a cast shadow. Can anybody tell me what a cast shadow is? Zach, when do you get a shadow on the ground? When an object is blocking the light. So if our light source is up here, our object starts blocking the light here and here. Which means that when eventually our shadow will be the shape that the light is blocked. Does that make sense? So I am blocking the light from this doorway, so there's a shadow in front of me. But it is the angle that the light hits the top of my head and comes down. That's how long my shadow is going to be. So if I move this light down, my angle is going to be longer. So if you think about the afternoon when the sun's in the, like on the edge of the horizon, your shadow's crazy long because you're blocking more of the light because of the angle of the sun. When the sun's right above you, you have a really tiny shadow. Stand up. You're taking notes standing right there. Does that make sense with the shadow and how to decide how long it is? There's an easier way to do that. Can anybody guess what the easier way to figure out how long a shadow should be drawn is? Miguel, I want you to give me your best guess. What's the easiest way to know how long to draw a shadow without doing all the math stuff that I just did up there? Has to do with your eyeballs. You look at it, you guys. This is part of the reason why I always tell you to get a reference photo, is because a lot of this requires a lot of thought process and math and all that other boring stuff. But if you just have a photo, you just look at the photo and you do what the photo says in it, right? So if we wanted to shade a face, we know exactly where our highlights are, our midtones, our core shadows, all that stuff that I'm about to cover in vocabulary, because it's right there. Does this photo have a reflective light? Yeah. Do we see any? So would we draw a reflected light? No. Does it have a really strong dark shadow? Yeah. So we would draw the dark part of the shadow, but we wouldn't have to worry about reflective light because we don't see it, right? Okay. So let's label all these parts. This part is the highest point of your object that is closest to the light. It's called a high light. So I'm going to say that again. Oh. This is the highest point of your object that is closest to the light. So it's a highlight. This is a mid-tone. Autumn, do you know what tone means? In art, not in music. Yeah, do you know what tone means? Yeah, it's just the color itself, right? How light or dark it is, the tone of the color, right? So it's the middle color, middle tone. That's what it means. It's just fancy. Perfect, thank you. And then we have our core shadow. Nathan, what is the core of an apple? But what part of the apple is it? The middle. Alejandro, if a core of an apple is the middle of an apple, what is a core shadow? The middle of the shadow. Perfect. So this is on the object, right? It's the middle of the shadow on the object. So core shadow, the middle, the darkest part of the shadow. And what was this little area right here that we had? JB, do you remember what it was? It was when light hit something and bounced back. What's that called?
Reflective light.
Reflected light. Perfect. Thank you, Jamie. So all these words explain themselves whenever you know what the vocabulary means, right? Like when you know what tone means and core and all that stuff. The last two vocabulary are cast shadow. Does anybody know what it means to cast something, like to cast a net? Best guess. I'll take a best guess. I believe you can do it, Spencer. What does casting a net mean? Or to cast a line when you're fishing?
You like throw it out.
You throw it out, but it's still connected to... Did you just throw it, or is it connected to something? Yeah. So you throw something, but part of it is still connected to you. So if you cast a shadow, your shadow is still connected to you, but it's going out from you, right? So a cast shadow is what we normally consider a shadow, like on the ground. That's our normal shadows. And if you want to get super fancy, if you're a person who is going to go into high art, you need to know this vocabulary word. The rest of you can ignore me. Occlusion shadow, that's an L. I'm going to spell it down here. Occlusion shadow. This is the super dark area under an object. I would like you guys to put your arm on your desk or a desk. And you will see that you have a shadow, but where your arm or finger touches the desk is super, super, super dark. Why?
Because no light can get to it.
Because light bounces and it has to bounce into that tiny space, and then it has to bounce back out so your eye can see it and it doesn't make it to your eye. Perfect. These are the rules that dictate whether or not something is shaded. This is the biggest one. So if I shade a square, let's move that down. You guys don't have to draw this part, I'm just demoing something. And I have a light right here. Is this area going to change value at all? Why not?
Because it's getting light, and so like a white.
Yeah. Does this area turn at all?
The front side?
The front side. No, it's flat, so it stays the same value, but this corner is super sharp and then it changes value like this, right? Because this part has turned away, right? And this part, maybe a little bit lighter because it's still kind of facing the light source, right? So with a cube or an object with corners, the change is very, very fast. It doesn't have the gradual change that you see here, right? But if you can learn this concept, then when you're doing these, it's super, super easy. So we're going to focus on this concept right here. Do we have questions about this thus far? Because we're going to do a practice now. No? Okay, let's see how much time we have. 10 minutes?